So in the last video I made, I talked about the difference between resilience and toughness. How I acknowledged that, yeah, resilience is absolutely vitally important when it comes to us being able to snap back from setback, from failure, from challenge, right, in the face of adversity. However, I contend that it should be one ingredient of an overall philosophy, mindset, or program that gets after optimizing performance and ultimately optimizing success. A lot of the questions I get are, how did you guys develop the Navy's Warrior Toughness program that I was at the ground level? And we got together, basically almost 3 people quite literally locked in a room, a warrior, which was me, a clinical psychologist, and a Navy chaplain. And we said, hey, you're going to build a holistic approach to toughness, meaning body, mind, soul. And so the first thing we had to do was like, okay, what does toughness even mean? And how are we going to measure to even know that it's successful? And so we came up with a program. And what we realized is we're all kind of saying the same thing from completely different areas. And the first thing we had to do was define exactly what toughness is. And the definition was a 3-part definition that we came up with. First, our ability to take a punch and keep going. And quite literally, taking enemy fire, you yourself are injured, your teammates are injured, and you need to get back up, and you need to return fire, and you need to take the fight back to the enemy. Okay, but it also means the other areas in our life where we need to take a punch and keep going, right? We didn't get that promotion we thought. Our business is suffering. We experience loss in a relationship, loss of a loved one, yet we have no other choice but to get back up and re-engage in the fight. The next piece is we need to be able to perform under pressure, right? That mental toughness where we can make critical thinking our number one priorities, make composed decision. We don't get thrown out of the saddle when things get hard. When we start to feel angry, frustrated, when we start to feel fear, we're able to respond to that situation effectively rather than react with panic. And lastly, it's not good enough for us to be able to do this with just one engagement, with just one deployment. We have to start to build the stamina, the toughness stamina for them to be able to perform this over a protracted period of time. A deployment, several deployments, a career, and still have their family lives intact. And so these are very aspirational goals. And so we got after this using a very fundamental approach. When we said we're going to get after this using the body, okay? All military folks, all military members, we know they need to be physically fit. But I think part of physical fitness, what it also gives us is making sure that we're going to be operating at the top of our game in terms of our cognitive abilities and our emotional regulation abilities. So physical fitness is very important, as is making sure that we're eating, putting the right things in our body, and getting good enough sleep. The next piece is mind. When we want our sailors to be able to perform in the clutch, when the bullets are flying, when it's really stressful, any other area where they need to be present and effective in their homes when their kids are screaming, right? They need to be able to be fully engaged. They need to separate from some of that emotional impact, separate from some of the distractions, and be able to think deliberately and think clearly. So they need to have the skills. And so they learn the same skills that elite athletes use, elite athletic organizations, special operations, military, and law enforcement use. So we give them that mental game. The last piece is they've got to have their soul intact, or their spirit side intact, meaning it's not religious based, but we need to have sailors of character. They need to, in the fog of war, when things are really, really hard, be able to make good moral and ethical decisions. And when they struggle, they need to be able to have the ability to lean into the areas in which they find strength. If religion is a part of your life in that sense, absolutely, you lean into that. But for the rest of us, it's connections, it's relationships, because we can't do it alone. And so what all this means in terms of translating that program in a way that can be useful for the rest of us, right, in our everyday lives and our businesses, is we can take that same approach, and we absolutely should. We need to make sure that we're doing things to keep us physically fit. We don't need to be elite athletes, but we need to make sure that at least we're healthy physically to make sure that that is underpinning our ability for good cognitive performance and emotional regulation. We need to make sure that when it comes to the mind, why not take the time right now to learn some new mental skills, things such as performance psychology, sports psychology, such as visualization or mental rehearsal, how to effectively set goals, how to effectively self-talk. Do those things. And a big game changer for me was meditation. Never thought I'd be talking about that hippie stuff, but here I am, because it was a game changer for me. And lastly, when it comes to our soul, let's find out exactly who we are, what we stand for, and what we're willing to invest, what we're willing to do with discipline to make sure we're the people we want to be and we're going in the direction we want to go, both outside in how we show up in the world, but also within our own walls with our family. So let's take that on board, because even after this thing ends, life will never stop throwing us challenges.